The founders believed the law belonged to the people. They wrote the Constitution in plain English because they expected farmers, merchants, blacksmiths, and ordinary citizens to read it, debate it, and defend it. Thomas Jefferson warned that, quote, "The people are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty," end quote. And James Madison insisted that, quote, "The people, not the government, possess the absolute sovereignty," end quote. For nearly a century that was true. In colonial courts, citizens routinely argued their own cases. In early America, it was common for a man to stand before a judge and speak for himself, or for a neighbor to speak on his behalf. The law was a public language. But by the late 1800s, a quiet shift began. Not through revolution, but through organization. A new professional guild emerged, one that would slowly take the law out of the hands of the people and place it into the hands of a credentialed class. That guild was the American Bar Association. On August 21, 1878, 75 lawyers from 20 states gathered in the town hall courtroom of Saratoga Springs, New York, to form a national organization, the American Bar Association. Their first president was James Overton Brodhead of Missouri, a man who believed the legal profession needed national unity and higher standards. The ABA's stated mission was noble: to improve the administration of justice and elevate professional ethics, but its deeper effect was structural. For the first time, lawyers across the nation had a unified identity, a shared set of standards, and a national voice. The law, once a local craft, was becoming a national profession, and professions always build gates. In the early 20th century, the states began integrated mandatory bar association. Unlike the ABA, which remained voluntary, these state bars required membership as a condition of practicing law. They controlled licensing, discipline, and the rules of professional conduct. The shift was subtle but profound. To speak in court, a citizen now needed a law degree from an ABA-approved school, a passing score on a bar exam, and membership in a state bar. The people had not voted for this. No constitutional amendment had been passed, but the effect was unmistakable. The law was no longer a public forum. It was a licensed profession. The gate closed. Once the bar controlled entry, it needed to protect its monopoly, so states began passing unauthorized practice of law statutes, laws that criminalized non-lawyers for helping others with legal matters. Historical research shows that the movement to prohibit UPL exploded in the 1930s, though its seeds were planted decades earlier. Courts justified these laws by claiming that, quote, "The amateur at law is as dangerous to the community as an amateur surgeon," end quote. But critics noted something else. UPL enforcement often had more to do with protecting the profession from competition than protecting the public. By the mid-20th century, non-lawyers were prosecuted for preparing simple documents. Community advocates were shut down. Even giving legal advice could be treated as a crime. The bar had effectively declared, "The law belongs to us." By the 1950s and 1960s, nearly every judge, legislator, and legal scholar came from the same pipeline: ABA-approved law school, to bar exam, to state bar membership, to judicial clerkship, to judgeship or political office. This created a self-reinforcing legal class. The people were no longer interpreting the Constitution. Lawyers were interpreting it for them. The founders had warned of this. John Adams wrote, quote, "that liberty cannot be preserved without a general knowledge among the people," end quote. But the people were losing that knowledge, not because they forgot it, but because the system had outgrown them. The courts themselves began to acknowledge the growing divide. In Ferretta v. California, 1975, the Supreme Court held that a criminal defendant has a constitutional right to represent himself. Justice Stewart wrote, quote, "The right to defend is personal. The defendant, and not his lawyer, is master of his own defense," end quote. It was a rare reaffirmation of the people's sovereignty. But even in Ferretta, the court admitted that the legal system had become so complex that self-representation was perilous. 15 years later, in Keller v. State Bar of California, 1990, the court confronted the political power of mandatory state bars. It held that compulsory dues could only be used for activities related to regulating the profession or improving legal services. The case revealed something crucial. State bars were not just regulators, they were political actors. The people had not only lost access to the law, they had lost control over those who controlled it. During the New Deal era, Congress created dozens of federal agencies with power to write regulations, enforce them, and adjudicate disputes. Scholars like Ronald Pistritto and Gary Lawson have documented how this administrative state grew into a fourth branch of government, one not envisioned by the founders. Agencies were staffed by lawyers. Their rules were interpreted by lawyers. Their decisions were appealed to courts run by lawyers. The people were now 3 layers removed from the law. Madison had warned that the accumulation of legislative, executive, and judicial power in the same hands, quote, may justly be pronounced the very definition of tyranny, end quote. Yet that is precisely what the administrative state became, a fusion of powers, managed by a professional class. The Constitution never said the Supreme Court is the final word on every issue, but over time, the court's interpretations became treated as binding national doctrine. This cultural shift, not a legal one, placed 9 lawyers above 330 million citizens. The people no longer debated constitutional meaning. They waited for the court to tell them what it meant. Jefferson warned that if judges became the ultimate arbiters of the Constitution, it would be, quote, the despotism of an oligarchy, end quote. His warning had come true. By the late 20th century, the transformation was complete. The bar controlled who could speak in court. The bar controlled legal education. The bar influenced judicial selection. The bar defined unauthorized practice. The bar shaped ethics rules. The bar lobbied legislatures. The bar disciplined dissenting lawyers. The people were no longer participants in their own legal system. They were spectators. The founders had built a republic where the people were sovereign, but sovereignty had migrated, quietly, professionally, and almost invisibly, into the hands of a legal guild. Here's the part most Americans never hear. Everything the bar gained, it gained through law, and everything gained through law can be changed through law. States can abolish mandatory bar associations. Keller confirms this distinction. States can redefine, quote, practice of law to restore citizen participation. States can create independent regulatory boards. States can expand lay advocacy and self-representation rights. Legislatures can reclaim authority from agencies. Judicial selection can be democratized. Legal education can be diversified. Civil legal literacy can be restored. The people lost the law through a century of professionalization. They can regain it through a generation of reform. The list of sources for this video are ABA founding, August 21, 1878, Saratoga Springs, New York, by the American Bar Association. Mandatory State Bar Association's History by Wikipedia. Ferretta v. California, 422 U.S. 806, 1975, by Justia U.S. Supreme Court Center. Keller v. State Bar of California, 496 U.S. 1, 1990, Justia U.S. Supreme Court Center. Unauthorized Practice of Law History and Analysis by VictorDLopez.com. Administrative State Origins and Growth by the Heritage Foundation. The story of how the bar gained power is not a conspiracy. It is a historical process, slow, structural, and well documented. But the story's not over. The Constitution still begins with we the people. Not we the lawyers, not we the bar, not we the courts. The people lost the law through professionalization. They can reclaim it through reform. And when they do, the law will once again speak in the voice of the people it was written to serve.